Imagine waking up every morning with a voice in your head telling you that you're not good enough. It tells you that you're not talented enough, that this isn't meant for you, and that no matter how hard you try, you'll never become extraordinary.
Now imagine hearing that same voice every single day for years, and still getting up, putting your shoes on, and doing the work anyway. That is exactly what David Goggins has done for most of his life. Before he became a Navy SEAL, an ultra-marathon runner, and one of the toughest men on the planet, he was overweight, struggling in school, and trapped in a life he hated. He didn't have exceptional talent. He wasn't naturally gifted. He wasn't born with incredible confidence. According to Goggins, the thing that transformed his life wasn't motivation, it wasn't passion, and it certainly wasn't talent. It was his willingness to become comfortable with discomfort. Most people believe that successful individuals are simply born different. They assume that high achievers learn faster, think better, or possess abilities that ordinary people never will. But Goggins tells a completely different story. He openly admits that learning has always been difficult for him. When he studies, he often has to read the same page over and over again before it finally makes sense. He fills notebooks with handwritten notes, rewrites information repeatedly, and spends far more time learning than most people ever would. For many people, that would be a reason to quit. For Goggins, it became a reason to keep going. That's an important distinction. Most people see their weaknesses as proof that they should stop. High performers see their weaknesses as directions for where they need to work harder. The difference between average people and extraordinary people is not always talent. More often, it's the willingness to stay in the struggle long after everyone else has walked away. One of the most powerful ideas from this conversation is Goggins' perspective on motivation. Today, we're surrounded by motivational quotes, inspirational videos, and advice telling us to wait until we feel ready. But Goggins believes that's one of the biggest lies people tell themselves. The truth is, you won't always feel motivated. Some mornings you won't want to get out of bed. Some days you won't want to exercise. You won't want to study. You won't want to work. You'll feel tired. You'll feel discouraged. You'll feel like skipping just one day. And according to Goggins, those are the moments that define who you become. Because character isn't built when you feel inspired. Character is built when you take action in spite of how you feel. Real discipline begins when motivation disappears. That's the moment where growth starts. Andrew Huberman then introduces something fascinating from neuroscience. Researchers have discovered that a specific part of the brain is closely connected to resilience, determination, and willpower. What's remarkable is that this area doesn't grow because life is easy. It grows when you voluntarily choose to do something you genuinely don't want to do. Every time you wake up early instead of sleeping in, every time you exercise even though you'd rather stay comfortable, every time you study when your mind wants to quit, you're strengthening the neural pathways responsible for discipline. And every time you consistently avoid discomfort, those same pathways become weaker. In other words, willpower isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, one difficult decision at a time. Throughout the interview, Goggins returns to one simple idea: friction. He says growth lives inside friction. Friction is that moment when your mind tells you to stop. It whispers that you've done enough, that tomorrow will be a better day, that nobody will notice if you quit. Most people listen. That's why most people never change. But people who transform their lives learn to recognize friction differently. Instead of seeing it as a reason to stop, they see it as proof they're moving in the right direction. Because everything worthwhile sits just beyond that uncomfortable moment where most people decide to turn around. The strongest version of yourself is waiting on the other side of resistance. The question is whether you're willing to keep walking long enough to meet that person. The greatest lesson David Goggins teaches isn't that everyone should become an ultramarathon runner or push themselves to impossible extremes. His lesson is much simpler. Stop waiting for confidence. Stop waiting for motivation. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. The people who change their lives aren't necessarily smarter. They aren't necessarily more talented. They simply become willing to do difficult things consistently, even when they don't feel like it. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you become a little stronger. Every time you choose action over excuses, you become a little more resilient. And every time you face discomfort instead of avoiding it, you move one step closer to the person you're capable of becoming. Because success isn't about becoming someone else. It's about discovering the version of yourself that's been hidden behind comfort all along. So here's the question. How much discomfort are you willing to face to discover your true potential?
Remember this. The hard path isn't standing in your way. The hard path is the way.